Hi, and happy St. Patrick's Day from Randall here in Texas.
And I'm Matt here in Michigan. We got a special video for you this St. Patrick's Day. You may remember last year we had Boondock Saints, but this year we're going to do 1993's Leprechaun. It stars Warwick Davis, Jennifer Aniston, Ken Olent, Mark Holton, and Robert Hy Gorman. It is written and directed by Mark Jones. He also directed Nightman, Rumpelstiltskin, and was a writer in all the Leprechaun movies. Before we go any further, if you like this review, be sure to give us a like and subscribe. Also, be sure to ring that bell to get notified about our latest videos.
In Leprechaun, we find our main antagonist being transported from Ireland to the United States following his bag of gold coins. He will punish and kill anyone who gets in the way of his gold coins. But while trying to retrieve them, he's caught in a box for 10 years, and that's where our story picks up. This was very poorly received by critics and audiences of the time. It had a $1 million budget, but it made about $8.6 million at the box office. I'm going to do some inflation adjustments here for you guys, but it's still not that impressive. That's $1.82 million and a $15.6 million box office return. This has 5 direct sequels and 1 reboot attempt. Matt, taking a look back at Leprechaun, what do you think?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I did not particularly enjoy this movie. Yeah, this movie is dumb, but sadly not in a good way. I mean, I'm a big fan of movies that are so bad that they're good. I like horrible movies. I used to have like a horrible movie night in college and stuff. But yeah, Randall, I don't know if drinking any amount of green beer is gonna make this viewing experience a whole lot better.
Well, okay, so that's probably fair. That's fair criticism. But what shocked me was it's been a long time since I actually sat down and watched one, especially the first one. I'm much more well known. I know the Leprechaun 3 a lot more. I watch that one a lot more often. Don't ask me why. The thing that struck me was I had forgotten. I really forgot just how bad this movie is. I mean, I know that it ended up making some money, but to think that this film franchise went on to have 5 direct sequels and a reboot attempt, oh, wow. Because it is so poorly done.
Hey, look up in the sky.
So what, Ozzy? It's just a rainbow.
It's a magic rainbow.
Some of this low-budget horror film stuff has always been a little bit janky or very bad, but this came out in 1993. The special effects for this are bad for 1993. No, these special effects are bad when compared to like 1980 contemporary films. So like Evil Dead comes out in 1981 and has better effects on a far less budget. And like Nightmare on Elm Street came out in 1984 and is a decade, almost a decade before, and blows this one out of the water for how it looks. This movie is not only just a poor story, the effects are poor, the acting is mediocre at best, and it's just a bad movie.
Some of the things done in this movie are kind of, head scratching and stuff. It's weird because a lot of these gags, because it's definitely going for these gags with the Leprechaun character. I'm kind of like, well, it's almost like this is aimed for kids, but this movie definitely isn't aimed for kids. There's
not.
Things that happen in this movie that's like, no, I would not want kids to see this movie at all. But it's weird, and I think that might be a little bit why what we probably remember a bit from this movie or these movies. We probably remember a lot of the gags with the Leprechaun, and I think those do kind of appeal probably to a younger audience. But yeah, the movie as a whole, yeah, definitely is not for them.
If you think about the movie as a whole, what's really weird about it is the idea of the fact that there are no rules. Most horror films, sci-fi films, or fantasy films, they have kind of established rules for how things work, and you'd think, okay, well, in this universe, maybe in a perfectly written script, anyone who like stole gold or who has one of his gold pieces could be a target of his. But that's not true at all. He can just go about killing anybody he wants. It doesn't even matter if they give him the gold or if they stole the gold or anything. It's just like, no, it doesn't. The cop didn't do anything to him other than pull him over in his scooter. Yeah, okay, I'm sure he was. Yes, anyways, we'll gloss over that. Pull him over his scooter. That's so weird. But he goes after it, attacks this cop, and ends up murdering the cop, and you're like, but the cop doesn't have any of your gold pieces or anything. He just kind of like insinuates, oh, you've insulted a leprechaun, so that's enough, and now you're dead. Like, there's no rules to what he can and can't do.
And at the end, they kind of hint like, oh man, that was fun. It just shows you the character does things for fun. But another thing that makes absolutely no sense to me, I know that the leprechaun's a cobbler, but why does he have the urge to absolutely clean shoes? Like, we have one part when our hero characters or whatever are getting away, and the way they get away is by throwing shoes at him and at the ground, and he has to go up to each shoe and start wiping out the shoe. That makes absolutely no sense. How is that established that not only is he cobbler, but is compelled to clean shoes every time he sees them?
I'll be the first to admit that maybe I'm not up on my Leprechaun lore, and I don't mean Leprechaun the movie, I mean like real Leprechaun lore. Maybe leprechauns are compelled to shine shoes. I'd have to look that up. I don't know off the top of my head. So maybe that's a thing where it's just kind of like, well, all of the myths and the legends are true, basically. But yeah, at that point, it is funny because they're just like, I have an idea. throw the shoes. And I'm like, whoa, that was more than enough time for everyone to get away in that. Oh, by the way, that awesome CJ. That is a nice Jeep. Whew, yes. But, I'm just like, so wait, this is illogically. If you're telling me that you distracted the leprechaun by throwing the shoes so that way Jennifer Aniston's character can get in the Jeep instead of all of you getting in the Jeep. So she leaves, and now you guys are going back into the house instead of getting in the perfectly running Jeep. This movie makes no sense.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, it's a leprechaun running among killing people with pogo sticks.
No, that's the thing too. Some of these movies, like I said, their movies are so bad they're good. If the gags were like really funny or really entertaining, I think it would make for a better movie. But I think that's part of the problem is, to me, they really aren't. I mean, I guess I chuckled maybe a little bit when he's in his like motorized car thing. I don't know. I mean,
that knocks over the giant full-size truck.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, it's just like, wow, okay, we go from a little tricycle to this motorized car that he packs things into, and then he modifies real quick in a barn at one point so that he can flip over the full-size truck with it and stuff. Yeah, it's just pretty crazy.
You don't laugh with this film. You are literally laughing at this film. But you know what? It's hard to argue with the success of the franchise.
I guess that's what happens when you make, 8 times your budget or whatever of a movie. So it's like, we're like printing money here.
You look at it and you're like, well, it's only cost $1 million to make it. They only made $8 million. Yeah, you're right. It's 8 times as much. Imagine if they 8 times, a $200 million movie.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, there's a lot there.
Also, with kind of like the actors and stuff too, not just like their acting, but the characters they play, none of them are actually all that interesting, at least for me. And I'm not just talking about Warwick Davis with the Leprechaun. I think that's probably the most interesting part, or maybe I'm just biased because I love Warwick Davis and the other movies he's in, Willow, Star Wars, Harry Potter even. But like Jennifer Aniston's character, like you were talking about the time where she goes off and on the Jeep, I really couldn't care less about that character until that point, probably, when she actually goes off and does stuff on her own, actually does something. Like, that was the only time that her character was actually any interesting. And yes, a lot of people say this is probably Jennifer Aniston's worst movie, and I don't think she's a big fan of it either.
Man, it is amazing to me that this comes out in 1993, and in 1994, the next year, Jennifer Aniston's a part of Friends. wow, someone was looking at this and just said, yes, that's what we need in a new sitcom that's going to define the 90s. By the way, speaking of defining the 90s, if you are a huge 90s nostalgia guy or girl, this movie is perfect for you. You don't need to watch it to watch the Leprechaun stuff or anything else. You just watch it and you're like, oh my god, this is so 90s because it really actually is 90s. It's not nostalgia like Stranger Things trying to pretend to be the 80s. This is actually the 90s. The pump-ups, the LA gears, the cut-off shirts, the early 90s fashion. Mwah.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those movies, of its time kind of thing. I think if they made it like today, oh, no, please don't do another reboot. But, if they did it today...
I say they did just make it like a couple of days ago.
That's what I'm saying. Please don't make it again. We probably would get more of just like, hey, check out the 90s. Because, after Stranger Things, that is how it seems like everything that, like, takes place in, like, the 80s or 90s or whatever is. It's just like, hey, look at this 90s reference. Hey, look at this 90s reference.
Gotta get all those millennials. Gotta make excited. The only thing that'll make them excited is their childhood. Well, okay. Well, I'll leave off with the last thing, which is actually just getting near the end of the movie that I had to note down because I had talked earlier about just how the special effects in this film are bad. Like, for the time, even for the budget, the special effects are not particularly well done. You get to the end, and they're in North Dakota, remember, okay? Or South Dakota. One of the Dakotas. And how do you kill a leprechaun, Matt?
In this movie,
yeah.
You just shove a 4-leaf clover down its throat by wadding it in gum and shooting it with a slingshot.
Yeah. Okay. So, where do you get a 4-leaf clover in the Dakotas?
Of course, by a water source would have to be the well, which has this nice green light on it shining down at a patch of grass. That
green light did me in. I had sat through all of this movie just to get to literally probably a set, someone on set just holding a green light. It's just a green light on the ground. That green light just literally was the last straw. I was like, oh my god. Because that's even before you get to the point where, the leprechaun, does his face thing. That's probably the most effective and best special effect of the film. Honestly, that's where most of the budget went to, I think. But that clover patch, air quotes. Oh.
I know he's melting green, but to me, I can't help but think of another horrible movie that's awesome. Troll 2 or whatever, where people are turning into
Don't
plants.
Don't you mean Goblin?
It's Neil Blog backwards.
Yeah, maybe one of these days we'll do Troll 2. I know that's a long-standing viewer request actually. So.
A lot of people have done Troll 2, but yes, I definitely like Troll 2 a lot better than this film. Sadly, I'm not a big fan of Leprechaun, but I don't know. Maybe if other people like them well enough, we'll review some of the other Leprechaun movies. I don't know.
Leprechaun in the Hood. I'm with Matt. Honestly, I could not have possibly remembered how bad this film was. So... if you're in it for just laughing at a film, not with a film, definitely go for it. But you know what? We have all sorts of movie reviews. We got more flashback reviews. We have new movie reviews, TV reviews, and some longer discussions for you to check out on our YouTube page. So make sure to check those out if you liked what you saw here. We also post on Facebook the day before what we're going to be posting on YouTube the next day. We post new videos every Monday and Thursday. So be sure to come back and check them out. For now, I am Randall here in Texas. Everyone have a happy and safe St. Patrick's Day.
And I'm Matt here in Michigan. Enjoy your St. Patrick's Day, everyone. Next time on No Market Media. Please consider checking out some of our other videos.